What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's me, Joe, the Casual Card Gamer. Today, we're going to be looking at a deck that I thought that I would not want anything to do with, but I have been having a lot of fun playing around with, and it is going to be, as per the title of this video, Sylvan Hornbeast King Magnolia. Now, the reason why I didn't really like this deck at first was because of its lack of power. It reminded me of very early Aquaforce lanes of power, back when Basil and what's his name? Basil and the grade 3 would just switch places and slap you for like barely anything. But it has started to grow on me, and with the release of Festival Collection, Koocy has been such a fun unit to use in this deck, and has really opened up ways to play. So let's get straight into the deck profile, shall we? Alright, so first things first, let's just get through this, because unlike a lot of other decks, this part of the deck, the ride line, it has a little variance, and I promise I did not keep it this way just because I have full art Lattice. But our ride line is Lotte, Charis, Lattice, and Magnolia. And for anyone that doesn't already know the abilities of these cards, Lattice, when rode upon by Magnolia, Soul Blasts 1, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it is a unit, call it. If it is not, add it to your hand. And if it is in the back row and it attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 to give it plus 10k. Magnolia, of course, is our main floofy boss boy, and his ability is at the end of the battle that it attacks, counterblast 1, choose one of your units, it gets plus 5 and can attack from the back row. But if you Persona ride, you can choose 3 instead of 1. So this is what I mean when I say it feels very early Aquaforce-esque. And of course, moving on, we have Charis, whose first ability is when rode upon by Lattice, lets you reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a grade 2 or lower, it goes to the field, somewhere on the field, and if it is not, then it goes into your soul. And of course, Lotte is our furry little starter here. Literally does the same thing every other starter in the game does right now. So there we go. That is our ride line. So let's move into the actual deck now. So for our grade 3s, we run 3 Sylvan Hornbeast King Magnolias. Now I did want to try running Hydra Rail Dragon in this deck, but it just feels a little too conditional, because 1, it has to hit a Vanguard, I believe, and 2, you have to retire it after you attack it. Yeah, so here we go. So it just didn't feel good in the deck. I know that is probably more of a never use this card to Zorga in terms of applicability or application, but yeah, it just doesn't work here because you don't get those kinds of numbers that would let it hit, and if you did, then you're not really maximizing the power of Magnolia in the first place, unless of course you use one of the next cards that we're going to be talking about. But all of that aside, these are the only grade 3s that we run in the deck. Next, we have our 4 copies of the Golden Bear Deer, Sylvan Hornbeast Gwinosla. So its ability is from the back row, when it attacks, you can counterblast 1, choose one of your rear guards, and that unit gains this unit's current power. So generally, you will be giving something plus 15 automatically, because Magnolia gives plus 5k and it has the 10k base. But if you are lucky and Magnolia drive checks 2 triggers, then you do get to give 35k to something, and that's what makes this deck so fun to play. It is very low floors but very high ceilings depending on what your field is like. I personally like having 2 Gwinoslas and then just, power, and then power, and then power to something else, and that is one of the more basic plays of the deck, of course, but really, really good card, and actually still relatively affordable. So if you wanted to pick up a Magnolia deck, putting it together wouldn't cost you very much outside of the over triggers, and of course the over trigger, just one, and of course the perfect cards. But anyway, we're not talking about prices, we're talking about cards. So next we have 4 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Duger. Very, very, very simple card. If you have 4 other rear guards, it gets plus 5k. Now this is a really good front row unit for Magnolia, because on a Persona Ride turn, it forces out a trigger to guard, unless it wasn't your, of course, it's not your second attack. Not your first attack, because you're always attacking with Magnolia first to hopefully get those triggers to boost your units. But when it does attack, it is minimum 25k on a Persona Ride turn, so I personally always want this in the front row, so that it can force out at least 1 to 2 cards, depending on what my opponent's hand is. Anyway, moving on. This is the more tentative side. I still am in the experimentation phase of this deck, but in the playtesting that I have had with it, I have had a really, really good time with it. And so I run 2 Spurring Maiden Alenia. So her ability is when she's placed on the rear guard, counterblast 1, soul blast 1, choose 1 unit from your drop zone and call it to a rear guard circle, and it gets plus 5k. Now, I cannot stress how many times this has helped me get my field back. Now, you might be wondering, why play Alenia when you could just play Soul Condensation? And the answer to that question is because this, even though it costs a little more to do the same thing, I get a body on the field, and that is what you want with this deck. You want to make sure that you have a full field at all times when it's on your turn, because if you don't have a full field, then you're not maximizing Magnolia's ability. And yeah, Alenia. So moving on, we have 2 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Aglio. So very simple ability, put into soul, choose 2 units, and they get plus 5k. If you have 2 Gwenoslas, well, there you go. Something is getting plus 40k, or 2 things are getting yeah. But Aglio is really good for refilling the soul, and because we have things like Alenia, we have Lattice's ability that also requires a soul blast. I don't have another copy of Lattice in this deck, but its Road upon effect still does use a soul blast, so we want to keep using being able to refill the field while doing other things at the same time. And the last grade 2 we have here is Tearful Malice. I run 2 copies of it, and its ability is retire 2 units, draw a card, put this card into your soul, and countercharge 1. Now this is really good because there are cards in this deck that don't serve any purpose after the initial turn that they're played. So for example, if I still have Alenia, for some reason I haven't intercepted with it, then I can always get rid of her. And one other thing, and Tearful Malice helps, and of course the superior calls off of your grade 1 and your grade 2 also might, give you trigger units that you don't want to just call over for better units. You want to make use of those, and so Tearful Malice really does help there. So that is it for the grade 2s. And on to the grade 1s. So of course, what is a Vanguard deck without perfect guards? So we run 4 Planar Prevent Dragons in my deck testing against Woodland Docks. This card saved my butt, and potentially could have saved my butt even more if I had guarded properly. But of course, you need your perfect guards. There's no way around it. And then we also play 3 copies of Charis because it is a 13k body in the back row and is an 18k solo slapajama when you use Magnolia's effect. Now, you don't want to target just Charis on a Magnolia turn, but of course, it's sort of mid-priority in terms of wanting to keep it in your hand versus wanting to play it. Does give you options in terms of 1, guarding, 2, tossing for your ride deck. And you know, it's so cute. What more do you want? Those are the eyes of, I don't know, those are eyes. So moving on, we play 3 copies of Sylvan Hornbeast Koocy. Now you might be wondering why 3. Now the reason why I play 3 instead of a set or 2 or even just 1 is because 3 is really good in terms of drawing it for consistency, and 2, if I already have 1 on the field, unless I'm playing against a retire deck or an imprisoned deck, that is staying on the field, and the other 2 copies I can just toss for whatever. Now, it has happened a lot, and I've never had a problem with having a second copy in my hand, and you know, just tossing it, especially because you want to see this as early as possible. You want your grade 1 and your grade 2 turns. If you're going second, you want your grade 1 and your grade 2 turns to be not, if not unguardable, then annoying to guard. You want to pry out those early guards if your opponent wants to, or you know, just make your lanes big early on. So 3, and for anybody that doesn't know the ability, since this card was just, you know, just very recently released, this card cannot be ridden and can only be called to the back row center rear guard, and it has 15k slapping power. Next, we have 2 copies of Spiritual Body Condensation, and I like this card. It helps. It lets me toss cards that I might need later, and still have the peace of mind that I can get it back. That's the nice thing about Stoicheia. If, as long as you have Zorga in this nation, you will get some kind of drop zone recursion. So that's really nice. Its ability is Soul Blast 1. Choose a card with a grade equal to or less than your Vanguard from your drop zone. Call it to rear guard. Gets plus 5k. Very, very nice card. And last, grade 1, we play 2 copies of Conspiring Mutant Adamantis. Now, Adamantis is good early game. It is also good mid game. I don't like using it late game because it just, you know, like the optimal fields, there's just no space for it. But its ability is, when placed, you can choose one of your other rear guards, and that unit gets plus 5k until end of turn, which is very, very nice because, especially early game, you want to be pushing for those for higher numbers. You want to be able to rush. Sometimes when your opponent hits 2 or 3 damage before they hit grade 3, they start guarding, and you want to make that guarding a little more troublesome for them, and that is really good. And of course, it is a target for Tearful Malice. Once it's given its plus 5 ability, then it doesn't serve any more purpose aside from just being a body. So you can use Tearful Malice to get it off the field, to replace it with something a little more useful in terms of utility. And that is it for the grade 1s. And last but not least, we have our triggers. So of course we have our 1 Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor. Now, I love the ability of this card. It's basically an Omni trigger. You get the Over Trigger ability, then its additional effect is you draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets plus 1 crit until end of turn, your front row gets plus 10, and if your damage has more or equal cards, you heal. You basically heal. You get a crit, you get a draw, you get a front, you get a heal. And you get the 100 million power. And you draw a card. So it's a double draw trigger. It's a double draw trigger and gives lots of power. And yeah, there's not much else I can say about Bless Favor. If you over trigger Bless Favor on an offensive turn, you have 2 Gwenoslas on the field, and you just have fun. There's no getting around 1, 2, 3 100 million attacks, unless your opponent has 3 perfect guards or they just cheese 3 heals out of their deck. But anyway, Bless Favor. And then of course we have 4 crits, 3 front triggers, 4 draws, and for heals. Now, I know that there is a bit of a hatred towards front triggers, but you know, Magnolia generally is your first attack during your turn because you want to activate that ability and then just, you know, have the more varied your field is, basically earlier on, the better it is for you, because you don't want your opponent to be able to calculate how much power your field has. So having the front triggers really helps, especially on a Persona Ride turn. Duger would go from 25 to 35, and that's amazing. And whatever's on the other side would just be thing. If it's another Duger, then that's great. But yeah, I am just running the start deck setup, and it is working pretty well for me. And yeah, there's not really much more I can say about the triggers. I just like fronts. I really like front triggers. Anyway, that is it for this deck profile, guys. Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know down in the comments. If you didn't like it, well, you can eat my apple pie, because it's my deck. Whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. And yeah, I am Jello the Casual Card Gamer. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down in the comments if you liked it, and don't forget to tell your friends if you think that they will like this erratic sound hole of mine. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I am Jello the Casual Card Gamer. Take care.